What's shaking my St. Louis City fam? I'm your girl Kelly. I'm here to give you a lowdown, a rundown on what happened in St. Louis City government this week because my job is to attend the meeting so you don't have to. And yeah, it was a busy week this week, so I'm gonna get right into it with some highlights. Mostly really that deal with development in the city of St. Louis. So the first thing is regarding NGA. So there's legislation that was discussed in committee, sponsored by Alderman Bosley and Page, that, if passed, would establish the Geospatial Protection and Enhancement Special Use District. And this would prohibit certain businesses and uses within the 950-acre site surrounding 2,500 feet, like a perimeter, a 2,500-foot perimeter, right? Of the next NGA West campus, which is located at Jefferson and Cass. So when we talk about the prohibition of certain businesses, so what does that mean? So here are a few examples. So gas stations, utility stations and towers over 65 feet, industrial and commercial uses that involve hazardous substances, and radio or other frequencies with towers over 65 feet. Alderman Bosley, he said, and I quote, "Nothing in this bill is harmful to folks, nor will it displace people from their houses." And so, again, from what I could gather, this legislation, it really just focuses on making sure that security measures are in place to maintain, again, the safety and security of NGA since they deal with the nation's security. So, he mentioned that there really needed to be more community engagement, discussions had with residents, so they're informed and they're aware of what this legislation is and what it ain't. So this legislation, it was held, and so we'll stay tuned on that. So the second thing too I wanted to mention, there was legislation discussed that would basically build tiny homes for unhoused veterans in the JVL, the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, specifically on Aldine between North Grand and Prairie. That legislation was passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation for the full Board of Aldermen. Then there are a couple tax incentive projects I wanted to mention taking place on the north side. So the first one, sponsored by Alderwoman Evans, is in the Ville, on Garfield Avenue, and it would rehab and reuse, if passed, it would rehab and reuse a vacant 100,000 square foot commercial building to expand operations of Dogtown St. Louis style frozen pizza. And so the co-owner of this business, was just really talking about how they'll be super intentional about getting folks employed that live in the community. The other tax incentive project discussed, because of the legislation introduced, was sponsored by Alderman Page, and this project is in Old North. And if passed, it would redevelop a vacant property into a community event space as well as some residential units. This mixed-use proposal, apparently it was based on input from a community needs assessment that had been conducted, by residents. So both of those projects, the legislation, both pieces of those legislations associated with those projects were passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation to the full Board of Aldermen. Then the low light of the week is the Board of Estimate and Apportionment meeting, which was literally a ish show and just completely ridiculous. So, and it's all around this saga around Board Bill number 2. And Board Bill number 2 deals with the appropriation of this ARPA federal coin. And really, this is the first go round of this coin. So the city of St. Louis, we're expecting around $500 million or so of this coin. So this is kind of like the first go round of this coin, which we're looking at $80 million. And so, we recall the Stimulus Advisory Board, which was assembled by Mayor Tashara Jones. They developed these recommendations based off of input from residents through surveys and, other data sources. There's a whole press conference around what these recommendations looked like. And again, the recommendations for spending this coin go towards providing direct relief for St. Louisans. So we're talking about rental assistance, utilities assistance, assistance for the unhoused, like things along that lane, right? And so, the Board of Aldermen, they had issued because I guess they felt excluded from the process. I don't know. And so they started their own process to get feedback from the community on how this coin should be spent. And the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, they basically voted on it, and they essentially approved, the recommendations or whatever. And so now it's in the hands of the Board of Aldermen. And so, Brother Louis Reed, he's just like, y'all want me to pull this magic trick out of the hat with, trying to get this board bill passed. And that's not gonna happen. And so what he's talking about is that, because the Board of Aldermen have been working so hard this session, they will be going on break, a summer break, starting July 16th until like sometime in September. So literally the Board of Aldermen, they got 2 weeks, y'all. 2 weeks to pass this board bill. And so it can be utilized by the St. Louisans that needed this coin like yesterday. And so he's saying that, you asking too much, sis. Like I can't do it. He said, and I quote, it's like someone passes the ball and you have 2 seconds to shoot that shot to score 100 points. Mayor Tashara Jones was like, Louis, bruh, really now? She's like, I seen you lickety split, suspend the rules and move some ish. And she gave an example, and she was like, for instance, the privatization of the airport. You did what you had to do with the quickness to push some of that legislation through. So I'm gonna need you to have that same energy towards this. But again, Brother Reed, he was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. There are rules, and that's not gonna happen. We can't do it like that. So we'll see what happens. Again, now it's in the Board of Aldermen's hands, and I mean, who knows? But I think it's really a shame, and it's sad if they can't figure out how to get this bill passed so that St. Louisans that really need this money the most, they're able to utilize it because it's real out here. So, we'll see what happens with that. And then rounding it out with the legislative corner. So there were 2 pieces of legislation that were passed by the full Board of Aldermen this week, really involving public transportation. So the first piece of legislation that was passed deals with the creation and the depositing of $10.5 million to the city public transit sales tax fund. And then the second piece of legislation that was passed deals with the depositing of $20 million to Bi-State's Transportation Trust Fund. So that's it. That's all that happened really this week. So please have a safe holiday weekend, and you'll see me soon. Peace.